Hey everybody, Wave 3 News meteorologist Brian Good here. Yes, a lot of talk already about what we need to discuss when it comes to tomorrow night and the weekend, and the majority of this blog will focus on that, by the way. I do at least want to mention still some dangerous cold weather we got to get through in the next 12 hours, so let's not ignore that. We're 7 degrees right now. We may climb another degree or two. If we stay in the single digits, we will be at the coldest level for our daytime highs since February 3rd, 1996. But we're at 7 already, and we've got sunshine, so we could easily hit 10, but we'll see how it plays out. The cold weather is certainly the story. Record low this morning, 3 below in the city of Louisville, but the coldest so far in Kentucky was in Harrison County, Kentucky, at 22 below zero. Not a wind chill, by the way. That was the actual number. Here are the current wind chills. 6 below is what it feels like outside at the moment in Louisville. 16 below in Seymour. 11 below at Fort Knox. So the wind chill advisory is still in effect all the way through tomorrow morning. Again, advisories when wind chills are likely to hover between 10 below and about 20 below. Once you get to 25 below again, then you're talking about a wind chill warning. Not rolling that out for tomorrow morning just yet, but right now, wind chill advisory is more likely to hold true. Either way, just bitterly cold air. The record tonight is 0. And that likely will be broken. All right, so when you look at the visible satellite, look at this. And we've had enough clearing. You can actually see the snow on the ground all across Tennessee, all the way through Virginia and the Carolinas. And you can see a little bit of a break right there, but that is where the separation was from that snowstorm on Monday. But look at the rivers across Kentucky. You can see that. And there's higher elevation in the bluegrass areas of Kentucky, so that's what looks brighter out through there. And that's why usually snow amounts are usually higher anyway. In I-75 corridor. And you can see all the rivers in Illinois showing up nicely from space. So I always love that shot. It's very cool to see from space in the wintertime season. So we've got the snowpack. That is important on how things are going to play out because our next system is moving in and diving down already into Canada, and it's marching itself to the south and to the east, and is eventually going to cause our big problem here for much of the region as we head into tomorrow night. Get into that in a second. First off, let's talk about the numbers tonight. Now, this model is forecasting around 2 below zero, potentially, for the area. I think it's a little too warm, but with lighter winds, we should still go several degrees below zero in the city, but the colder air will likely be more east than west. Wind chills for tonight and tomorrow, again, around 10 to 15 below. Still some spots that could get very close to warning level off to the east around Frankfort and Lexington, so we'll see what the Weather Service decides to do if there's any upgrades. Okay, so that's the cold air we got to deal with. Everybody is fully aware of that by now. As we were talking yesterday, system dives down, you've got your jet here. There's going to be a buckle that takes place on either side. Seesaw effect. Today, the energy diving in is not going to be as aggressive when it digs into here, so the buckle upward is not going to be as dramatic as the data looked yesterday, which means the system, the low pressure, has a better chance to track more east than north. Now, the Canadian just came in and it's still saying, yeah, I think it's going to go north. Well, it's not getting much support now because even the Euro just came in and it's all supporting the idea of a flatter solution, which makes more sense when you have Arctic air and snowpack. Low pressures like to tend to track more easterly than they do right over it. So, meteorologically speaking, this makes more sense. The trend that we have been seeing in the past 24 hours with the NAM leading the way from the very beginning, by the way, on that idea. So, what I'm going to do is show you some of the model ideas. I'll show you the NAM in particular because it really sets up the best scenario that we are trying to gather on how this is going to play out. So here's the NAM. Tomorrow morning, it's pretty cold. It's 11 below here in Louisville. Now in the afternoon, we warm up close to 20 in some locations. So a big warm up is expected on Friday. You see the snow that begins to break out in western Kentucky as we approach sunset. As we into Friday evening, it's trying to concentrate the main area of snow across our southern counties, mainly south of Louisville throughout Friday evening with some type of mixture getting involved in western Kentucky. Not much in Indiana at this stage. Then we pass midnight. We start to see a better impulse of moisture that gets gathered up. Heavier, in fact. Temperatures, though, now the model is saying 31, 32, but it does, yes, it does factor in snowpack. All right, it knows there's snow on the ground. But it still has a bias to be maybe 1 to 3 degrees off. So we have to factor that into this equation. Is it 31 or is it going to be more like 28? and that is a possibility we could be facing here, so we got to be careful. We do think there's going to be warm air flowing over our heads. I said you really can't stop that from happening. Warm air is light. It goes right on top of that cold air with the south flow, no problem. All right, so we're pretty confident on that warm flow flying up. We just got to figure out how deep is the cold layer, how much of the Arctic air is going to hang on. The deeper the cold air is, the better the chance a snowflake can develop and you get more of a snow column. The more you erode that down into a smaller level, you get into sleet, or in some cases you get into just plain freezing rain. And the models are going to really struggle on this. And this, by far, is our most complicated system I have seen, not only this season, but even in the past several years. This is a very difficult one to figure out because we've had so many unusual factors that have led up to this. So, is there going to be bust potential? Yep. Is there going to be some surprises? Yep. Which means you've got to stay close to this forecast constantly. And we're going to stay on top of it, and we always have, but we're going to keep an eye on it very carefully, hour by hour, because I fully suspect this is going to be one of those things where we're not going to have a lot of answers until this thing starts. I know this is last minute, but this is the way you got to treat it. It's just too complicated of a setup. This, by the way, again, it's going to be Saturday morning. Let's go back to the model here. You see how it breaks out in the snow. Now as we advance it, sorry about that. Let me clear out my screen. There we go. And it's now picking up on the idea of maybe some heavy snow Saturday morning somewhere close to the parkways. Now, could that be further north? It could be. Could be in Indiana. Not rolling that out. We don't know yet where the heavy precip will lie, but we've got to watch that because of that cold layer. Now, notice in our southern counties what's happening. It's trying to get that warm layer thick enough there, or the cold layer shrunk down enough that you get more of a frozen precipitation idea of sleet, freezing rain, or just plain rain. Now, as we head into Friday midday, it's still holding tough on the idea of something frozen going on across Kentucky. And then it takes a break because, again, most of the system begins to head east, not north. So there's not a huge surge of warm air that continues all the way into Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. And this is more of a lighter snow that drifts across the north. And as we into Saturday night, again, temperature still have that 1 to 3 margin of error that can happen. So too close to call. So that's kind of just one model's idea of how this is going to evolve. A snow burst, and then it gets really iffy through Saturday morning and to about midday Saturday. But here's what we have to really pay more attention to. This is the potential moisture the system can have, which is ½ inch here, 1 to 2.5 inches in our southern counties. How much of all of that liquid is going to be snow, how much of that's going to be sleet or freezing rain, and how much of that is going to be plain rain? That's the question we've got to answer. And it could, hopefully we can divide it up evenly enough to where there's very little impact on all of this. But if one of those precip types dominates, whether it's snow or freezing rain especially, then you see the problem that we could have. So that's why we got to watch it. It's a heavy precip event, and temperatures are extremely crucial. When it comes to snowfall, the NAM's picking out the idea of several inches of snow. Again, this is not our forecast. This is a model. And it's picking up on that idea on that Parkways corridor for several inches. And watch criteria or warning criteria all the way up to the Ohio River. The ice potential, it's not as aggressive on that. It's more focused on southern Kentucky and especially down into Tennessee. Our PM model, it has a poor tendency to really snatch on these ideas last minute. Doesn't show much. In fact, it focuses more on the snow issue to the north as it's a slightly warmer profile for us. GFS just came in, not far off from the NAM, all right, a little more suppressed. But look at Somerset. I mean, 10.2 inches is what it's trying to pick out. You see the problem there. It's got a lot of precip, and it can't figure out how much of that is going to be frozen versus liquid. So this is not an easy one, guys, but I'm going to give it 4 Twix bars for its potential. For impact could be huge across, especially Kentucky. And then we got weaker systems on the 25th, and then the first few days of March that are a little more questionable, but they do look cold, and some wintry weather is possible. So that's the latest. All right, we got a conference call coming up at 2:30 with the National Weather Service. We may see some alerts get issued, so stay tuned for that. Just make sure to stay aware of the changing weather on this. Again, Friday night into Saturday is going to be our main concern with the system, and our precip types are going to vary from one end of the viewing area to the other on different parts of the day. So stay close and stay safe, and we'll watch it. Hang in there.